Welcome to the Paperclip podcast presented by BSDA. We have one clear goal: help you to become bigger. I'm your host, Brett Stone. This is season 2, episode 10. And obviously, thank you to you, the Paperclip podcast family, for tuning in, for listening or watching. Definitely appreciate you and the kind comments and words that we get. And I certainly listen to all of those, and we've added some great questions, especially for this episode today as well. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest today, Natalie Claire King, who is a couples counsellor. How are you, Natalie?
Well, thank you, Brett.
So right now, people will be listening and kind of watching this episode more than likely from home. Trapped, it feels a little bit like at the moment at home. I'm sure that you are somebody who is in high demand at the moment as a couples counsellor. We certainly heard some interesting statistics around mental health from people like Beyond Blue and Lifeline just in the last couple of days, courtesy of our leaders in Victoria and Australia. Is that something that you're experiencing an increase in as well? Are you seeing more people talking about that or coming to you for advice?
Just to clarify, coming to me for advice in terms of how to manage their relationships in this kind of lockdown period.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. People are kind of coming out of the woodwork. So I think perhaps in the last 2 weeks, everyone was in a lot of shock. And there wasn't really a lot of movement because I think people were really just in survival mode and kind of thinking, I can't spend any money because I don't even know if I am going to be able to be keeping my job at the moment. And so it was actually dead quiet for like the last perhaps 2 weeks ago. And it was that shock period. But now people are starting to realize this is kind of the new reality, the new normal. And realizing, okay, maybe I need a little bit of help. And so it's not like an influx, but it's kind of like day by day, new inquiries are slowly coming in, and it's starting to get more and more, just as that shock wears off a little bit. Yeah.
And I think that's, I made the comment yesterday to somebody that, hearing that there is an increase in people looking for help or trying to get help, I think is, on the surface, you kind of look at it and think, oh, that's terrible, that it's affecting so many people. And I think, but then at the same time, I think the comment that I made is that how great it is that people are actually reaching out and seeking that help as well.
Yeah, exactly. That people realize how much value there is in getting help when you do need it, and that it's totally fine to ask for help. It's actually a really good thing. And you can't always do it alone. We are only human. So reaching out for that help when you do need it is so positive.
And I spoke to a friend of mine who's in a brand new relationship, only a couple of months old, and she's made the comment that they're already living together just because he needs to, like her partner needs to protect his grandmother and grandfather who he's staying with at the moment, typically.
Yeah.
And so kind of the circumstances have forced them to accelerate the usual process, I guess, of a relationship. And so they're living together after a couple of months rather than maybe after a year or more. So that's something that not only she's going through, but I've gone through the same thing at the moment. So it's interesting hearing more and more people talk about that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, and so great that people are actually talking about it, because that can be really stressful when something's accelerated like that, when you don't kind of have that control over it, whereas you might have liked to if this wasn't the circumstance. But to know that other people are facing that as well, and perhaps some of the struggles that they're going through, it means that you're not kind of freakish in feeling like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you think back to your very first job, what did you do as your very first job?
I was a babysitter for my very first job. And I did that from when I was 14 till probably my mid-20s. So for a very long time, for numerous different families. From a very young age, I just absolutely loved kids and children and babies. And so I dropped leaflets around the neighbourhood, letting everyone know that I was available, very willing to care for their little ones. And I was lucky in my neighbourhood, there were a lot of families around. And so I just started there, and word got around that I was okay, I was responsible, the kids were safe in my hands, and kind of that carried me through until I was 18 and got my driver's license, and then I could go to other neighbourhoods and do more babysitting there. So that carried me through for a very long time.
It's a lot of responsibility as well for somebody at 14.
Yeah, definitely. And it started off small little jobs when I was 14. It would have been perhaps 2 hours when, and that was just like the house opposite where I was. So I think they felt safe that my mum was at home if I really got desperate.
Yep.
And it was just 2 hours, the couple would go for a bike ride together, that just so they could have that time together. So it started small, and I earned that trust, and then I got older and had more responsibility as I went on.
And do you think there is, just the fact that you obviously, your role now is in couples counselling, it's interesting how even the example that you gave then was, couples just getting away for a couple of hours to go on a bike ride together. Is that something you think is equally as important right now during this kind of lockdown time?
In terms of couples having that time together?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that quality time for sure. I think because you're in lockdown, it's so easy to just, we're here, we're in each other's space anyway. We probably don't need to plan anything. Well, what do you mean quality time? Like, we've got quality time, it's fine, think that it's all good, so to speak. And I am hearing from couples that because they do have this time together, that they're feeling like in some way their relationship is benefiting because like the one person who felt like the other person was always at work is there now. And so even though they're working, it's just nice for them to feel that they're at home. It's just that feeling that they're there. But for them to feel special and like they're important to that other person, they have been planning that quality time together, even if it's just an hour walk together. And if it's a couple who have kids, to be able to try and figure out when can we have that time, just the two of us, to really connect and get close in a way that you don't when you're just physically together and the kids are there. And yeah.
And what were some of the skills that you needed to learn in order to become a couples counsellor?
I think for me, one of the most important things that has stuck with me whenever I see couples is that a lot of the time, the way we behave or the reason we do something is actually really understandable when we look at why or what's kind of driving that behavior. That there's always an understanding around someone's behavior. So while it might be that they're coming across mean and attacking and critical and blaming, when you start to really slow something down, you listen to them, obviously a key skill as a counsellor to really listen. But when you take that time and listen to them, you hear that a lot of that criticism and blaming comes from them being scared that they might lose their partner, or that they're not important to their partner, or some really good reason. Doesn't make it okay, but it makes you kind of go, oh, I get that. I would get frustrated too. I would get angry too. So I think that's been one of the most important things for me when I see couples, is that we all do things for very good reasons a lot of the time.
And can you tell us a little bit more about what you do as a couples counsellor and how you're able to help people?
Yeah, sure. So I see couples with a range of different challenges and issues, whether it's around parenting, there's been an infidelity, they're just finding that they're constantly arguing all the time and they can't get any kind of resolve. I also see couples who are getting married and they do a bit of pre-marriage counselling, so moving to that new transition together. And so what I do is I will have a joint session with the couple first to really figure out what their goals are for counselling, what they really want to get out of that process. I'll then see each of them individually, just so I can get to know them a bit. And sometimes we feel a bit like we can't talk about something when our partner's in the room. So I just like to check if there's anything there for either of them individually. And then, all things going well, we'll go ahead and do couples counselling. The type of counselling I offer is called emotionally focused couples counselling. What that means is really it's the type of couples therapy that has had the most research behind it and has had the most evidence behind it, that couples feel that there's a positive shift in the way they're interacting after counselling, but also that it lasts kind of 5 years, 10 years down the track. Because sometimes some forms of counselling, it can feel like a bit of a band-aid, where you might talk about, I don't know, communication issues, and you might get behavioural stuff from the counsellor, but it can feel like a band-aid issue. A band-aid fix. But the way I work is to look at the emotions that drive the way a couple is interacting. So it's kind of like going really underneath what's happening, and figuring out where they're getting stuck, where that endless infinity loop of them clashing constantly, what's driving that. And so it can be 6 to 8 sessions at the shortest, or it could be, say, 15 to 20 sessions. Really depends on the couple, how long they've been together, the history of their relationship. But you definitely, we want to feel that there's a shift in what's going on between them, at least within 6 to 8 sessions, and then we reassess where things are at and where we can go from there.
And I'm guessing over the course of your career, you've worked obviously in your own business, but then you've worked with other people and around other people as well. And just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about some of the differences you found between working with others versus going it alone.
Yeah. There's positives and negatives to both, really. When you're working with other people, you have an easily accessible support system there. Then working for yourself, that to some extent that support system is taken away. You don't have colleagues that you're meeting in the kitchen for a coffee or that kind of thing. And that's what I have felt to be the most important piece, to feel really supported, especially working alone. So I've had to build that in, and make sure that I have that support system, whether it's other counsellors that I might catch up with or just jump on the phone and get a bit of advice from, or if it's other people who have their own small business, and so that you can talk about what are the stresses that they're going through. I'm going through the same stuff. That again, that sense of not feeling so alone in all of this, which is really easy when you're an employee. So when you're on your own, to kind of build that for myself has been really important.
And what made you want to work for yourself?
I think part of me just wanted to do things my own way.
It's a pretty common answer.
Yeah. And, take what I'd learned in working with other people, the best parts, and build that into my own business. What I've found to be valuable, what I've found to have worked really well. And, I wouldn't take that experience of working with other people away because it has been so valuable. But take the best bits and put it into my own business. And, on some level, it's kind of more stressful because the weight of the responsibility is huge when it's just you, and can end up doing 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. days. And you're the only one going, okay, probably need a bit of self-care here. So trying to balance all of that is certainly not easy. But the rewards of being able to just think about exactly what you want for yourself and put that into play for your own business. I'm enjoying it so far.
That's good. That's good. And what you said then actually makes me want to add an additional question to the questions that I typically ask our guests. And hopefully you can indulge me as the first person to answer this question. But what's something that you do for your own self-care?
Yeah, sure. So many things. It depends the level of care that I need, probably. It can be as small as watching a Netflix series or reading a book, in some downtime, to ensuring I get at least 30 minutes exercise or outdoors, going for a stroll each day. Especially right now, if I'm not outside for 30 minutes each day, I do start to feel, as you said before, trapped. And then if it's bigger, if I'm really struggling with something, going back to that support network. If it's like, for example, I found right now that I've got certain business goals that I would like to meet, but I can get really overwhelmed by them, and sometimes feel like my brain is going faster than I can keep up with. And so I've decided, well, you've tried for 3 months now to try and kind of kick those goals, but you're still getting overwhelmed. So I'm currently looking at getting a business coach and seeing if that might work for me. So I might have, a complimentary 30-minute session with someone and see if they're the right fit. But I think being able to outsource and delegate in that same way that you could do when you were working in a company or an organisation with other people, trying to kind of get your brain to think, well, how can I do that here? Because that's really another form of self-care, not having to take it all on yourself. It's too much.
Absolutely. And I'd say having I started the journey of working with a business coach myself probably 6 months ago. I know that there are things, it's that old, you don't know what you don't know. I found myself definitely getting stuck in doing things over and over and over rather than documenting them and being able to pass that on to somebody else so that I can focus on a different part of the business, or having certain things, structure and schedule in place so that, or a way to increase communication so that we all know what's happening with a particular client or a particular project. Those kind of things really came to the front when working with a business coach, and it certainly helped that particular part of the business for me, at least. And then it's also been helpful in other areas. So it's
and I think what comes to mind for me is that kind of little piece about accountability. so easy for me to kind of go like, oh yeah, I'll do that. And then I look at my calendar and I'm moving it to the next day, you know. But if there's someone that I've got to like tell them, yeah, I moved that to the next day, there's something in that. So just having someone who I know is going to keep me accountable. Yeah.
Absolutely. I completely empathize with that. So thinking back to kind of the beginning of your business, or even before then, what were some of the things that you did personally to help you go from having an idea for a business, for your own business, to then it becoming a business? What were some of the things that helped that? Was it like planning? Was it a particular, like a purchase that you made? What changed?
Yeah. I guess for me personally, it was probably certain trainings that I did. I knew that I wanted to pursue emotionally focused therapy, so to speak. And so I knew there were certain trainings that I needed to do so that I could market myself in that way. So that was probably the first step. And once I had that, then it was about planning. So, okay, now that I've put all the pieces together in terms of feeling qualified and that I can offer that to people, probably need a website. How can I go about that? What else do I need? So kind of figuring out how am I now going to get that message out there? And the website was the first piece. For me as a counsellor, the second piece is other counsellors and therapists as referrals. So how am I going to network and get in touch with them? Do I need to join a community? So yeah, doing a bit of a brainstorm and a mind map of what are all the ways that I can get that message out there, but what are going to be the best ways? Because there's no point me spending time or effort on all of them and burning out, but finding the ones that are going to work the best. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what's something that excites you? What's the thing that excites you most about your business?
Well, probably getting a new client, because I love hearing about people's stories. And I am in such a privileged, I feel, position where people will talk about the intricacies of their relationship and the hardships that they're facing, and the challenges. And each story is absolutely different from the next. So whenever I get a new client, I just get really curious and really excited about being able to listen to what's going on for them, and seeing if we're going to be able to work together to make them feel like their relationship is going to get a little bit better than what it might be feeling right now.
Absolutely. I'd get excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it might be something recent, or it might be way back in the beginning, but what was like a personal challenge for you that you faced in working for yourself? Typically, people that I guess, that I have on the show, they talk about, maybe their relationship was strained, or their friendships, some of them changed, the dynamics of them, or some friendships fell away altogether. They struggle with, like not sleeping, whether it's a shortage of sleep, or whether it's, broken sleep throughout the night, maybe worrying about things, or maybe financially, feeling a burden, or, that kind of thing. Is there something that you've had to sort of try to manage, or you've had as a challenge during your time as well working for yourself?
Certainly. I guess just when I started seeing clients, and when I started counselling, listening to what's going on for people and the pain that they're experiencing, it's so hard. and you learn how, but it's really hard not to just let it sit with you and can kind of consume you. And I did find that probably the first month or two as a counsellor, it was very hard for me to switch off after I'd had sessions, say that evening. Sometimes sessions would go as late as 8:30. And when I'd pop into bed at 10 p.m, I'd kind of have it all swimming around. And so I thought, well, this isn't working. I can't be a counsellor and not sleep. That's not helpful at all. So I actually went and saw my own psychologist, who I've had for years, and took it to someone who I knew would be able to support me and help me figure this out, and just explain to her what was going on. And she said perhaps one of the most important things that I have kind of carried with me whenever I do feel like I'm going through the swimming of people's words, is that, remember that it doesn't all happen in the room. And, she used kind of our experience. She's like, remember when in the past you came to me, did you do all the work in the room or was it outside the room? And I went, yeah, that's so true. And she said, sometimes you say something, it'll drop and it'll happen outside the room. So whatever you see in the room and you're worrying about it and you're thinking about and you're doing all of that, just remember you'll see them again in a week and it might be different. It's not all in that 1 hour. So that just made me kind of go, oh, it was like a relief. That really helped me.
And I imagine you were probably a better counsellor for doing that, for not carrying what might feel like a burden into the next session.
Yeah. And, I think you can't help it worry about, well, I couldn't anyway, worry about my clients because I care a lot about them, which is a good thing, but also that needs to be managed. And so, yeah, exactly right. If I can manage that and trust that, they coped without me before, they can cope through this, it's okay. So making sure I keep myself in check is always beneficial for my clients and my family too.
I suppose it's to some degree, they're not going to think about it 24/7 between one session to the next either. They're going to think about it as things come up or, as they're asked questions about it, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly, because we all do that, Yeah.
And how important is it for you to be around other business owners?
I think it's really beneficial because understanding that kind of it's kind of like a sounding board. Like if I've got something that I'm struggling with, I know that I can call A, B or C and lean on them. But also I might have a problem that I didn't even know I had, but because I'm part of this like therapist community group and all of them are in private practice. And so we might catch up once a month. They might start talking about something and it's like a random catch up. But whatever they're talking about in their business, I've kind of gone, oh, actually that's happening for me too. It kind of brings that up and I'm kind of solving a problem that I didn't realize I even had. But it's really helpful. Yeah, just it's so important talking to people and kind of realizing that you're not the only one going through any of that.
Absolutely. And I think that's certainly a very common theme through, I think that question in particular from our guest is, that feeling of not being alone, that feeling of being able to reach out to somebody and just ask them a question. A lot of my guests are involved in professional networking groups. So that they go to once a week, and they see these, the same business owners every week, and so they feel that doing that for them is really important for their own learning, because they'll go along and they'll just listen to how other business owners that are perhaps more experienced or just have different problems handle them, and what they can learn from that.
Yeah, definitely. And especially when that moment comes when you're asked something where someone else is kind of struggling with something, and they look to you and you're able to, you've got something to say about it that's useful, that's helpful. You kind of go, oh, I'm all right. I might know what I'm talking about here. And it's good for the confidence to know, like, yeah, I'm kind of getting this as well. People are leaning on me a little bit like I'm leaning on them.
That's right. And I think that's one of the things that has come up in this show on multiple occasions is that feeling of imposter syndrome as a business owner. And often people will talk about that and how it feels, even if they don't know what it's called. And then they'll say, the feeling of exactly what you just said, where they can go along and suddenly, they'll be doubting everything. They'll doubt, their knowledge. They'll doubt their ability. They'll doubt whether they'll be successful. And then they'll go along to, like their networking meeting like usual, carrying that into it, and somebody will ask them a question. And without even thinking about it, they'll have the answer. They'll know, they'll provide really insightful, helpful feedback to somebody else, or a tip to somebody. And instantly that feeling of, so I do know what I'm talking about, comes back to them. So
yeah, exactly. And like, I think even the professional of professionals have that feeling one time or another. And that's really just us trying to protect ourselves and kind of going, are you sure? Like, are we safe walking into this space, talking about that? It comes from actually such an innate place. So it's okay to feel like that. And then when you kind of do go, thank you, I know you're here to protect me, but I've got this. It's all right. It's good.
Good. That's a good tip.
Yeah.
And knowing what you know now, if you had to do all of this again, what would you do differently?
Probably not a lot yet, because I feel like I still need to get some in my own business experience under my belt before I can properly answer that. But and I'm sure we'll get off this call and then I'll go, that's what I should have said. But yeah, what I would have done differently, yeah, I'm kind of drawing blanks at the moment, because I feel like things are going okay. Actually, no, now I'm thinking about it. I guess for me, when I started, this is something that everyone was telling me I should do. And of course I went, oh no, I know what I need to do. But I rented a space, and normally as a therapist starting out, you would rent a space by the hour. That's what every therapist was telling me. That's what I should have done. But I thought, no, I want to be able to have a space for the whole day. And, because I'm sure I'll be really busy and things will just pick up. And so by doing that and not really listening to the people who had done this before, I did lose a lot of money. And it wasn't, week by week. It was pay for the whole day for a 6-month contract. And I was able to get out of that contract earlier. But yeah, if I was going to do that again, it would be different now, because I'd have a bit more money back then if I'd listened to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I have a friend of mine who is a counsellor, and one of the things that he did, which is actually how we met, he worked from a co-working space 3 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
So because he was able to find a room in the space that was private, that meant other people couldn't hear the conversations, that
Yeah.
and one of the things that I said to him from a kind of an outsider's perspective is one of the fears I would have by going to see a counsellor, there's always that fear of what if somebody sees me? So
Exactly. Yeah.
how will they judge me? What will they think of me?
Yeah. So normal. Yeah. A lot of people feel like that. Yeah.
And so I said to him, that's working from a co-working space actually really has, like, for the people coming to see you might have like a side benefit in that I don't have, if I was going to go and see him, I wouldn't have to worry about, signs on the outside of the building saying where I'm going. It's
Yeah.
just a co-working space. So I could be going to see somebody that's a counsellor, or I could be going to see somebody that's building websites or, doing all kinds of
Yeah.
things. So I think that was something that he did early on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he certainly had a similar sort of experience in that, he wasn't seeing people in the early days all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's one of those things. We all have things in the early days that we could go back to and go, if only.
Yeah, exactly. Lessons learned,
And what do you think the best advice over your career so far, the best advice that you've been given has been?
Probably hang in there. There till like at the beginning, when you kind of think like, yep, my website's live, I've got everything, like calls are going to come in, it's going to be great. And then it's like, not really happening yet. Is to just hang in there, and it will happen. It will happen slowly, and you have to be patient. And you just keep doing what you're doing, whether it's like writing those blog posts that you're really enjoying writing about anyway. They're going to build SEO, or just focus on that one thing that's going to be a long-term build, and keep doing those things, and the business will come. And it does if you stay motivated and you keep at it, but also have some patience and compassion for yourself at the same time.
That's really good advice. You've said a lot of great things today, but I think that one in particular, that's often, I think as being around a lot of business owners and speaking to a lot of business owners on the podcast, one of the most common things is, hearing how much they beat themselves up over the smallest of things because they're just trying so hard to get it all right. So,
Yeah,
give
it is so.
yourself some
Yeah, and you're exactly right. Like, it is so frustrating. You're trying so hard. You're doing everything right. Why isn't this happening? Yeah, it is. It is extremely frustrating. But being able to just know, like, yep, I'm working really hard. I'm doing everything right. It will come. It will come. Yeah.
And thinking back to that very first customer that was your first customer, your first client, how did you get your very first client?
For me, it was referral from another psychologist. So they were seeing a client individually, and then referred her and her partner on to me for couples therapy. And so that came out of the community that I have with other therapists, and those close relationships, and that they trusted me enough to refer their own client onto me. So yeah, building those genuine relationships has been so important and effective for me.
That must be great, a great feeling as well to have somebody, that's in that same position, that same trusted position, to refer somebody or a couple to you.
Yeah, a great feeling and a huge responsibility because you think, oh right, they must must feel that I can help them. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, right, I better help them then. It's like a double-edged sword. But no, you're exactly right. They, somehow resonated with them, so they trusted me enough.
And what's something that you do that once you have somebody or a couple as clients, what's something that you do to make them feel special?
Mm-hmm. I try to give them, some of my bookings come through online, or I might get an email. And if they're open to it, try and give them a call beforehand, and it can be video or over the phone, to chat to them for about 10 to 15 minutes, just to explain to them the way that I work, and the process, how I work. And if there's anything that they might, if they have any questions for me before we kind of have our initial session together, if there's anything that they're really worried about, therapy can be a pretty confronting experience. I try and make it very gentle, but it can still be, it's still work. So I give them that initial call to reassure them, be transparent with them, and make them feel safe just going into that first session together. Yeah.
And when you think about, any of the marketing or advertising that you've done to grow your business or to bring in new clients, what's something that you thought, this will be terrific, this will work really well, and it just bombed for you? It was just the worst idea.
Yeah. Well, when this whole coronavirus thing hit, I was getting, the sense that people couldn't spend any money. So I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Like, got to drop my rates. I've got to be able to service those people as well. And so I thought about, well, perhaps I dropped my rate to, I think it was like half price. And that will surely kind of get the people who are feeling like they can't afford therapy to a place where I might be more accessible to them. And I guess, thought perhaps that's like half of Australia right now, because everyone seems to be losing their jobs. And I think it was just too early to even go out with any kind of offer. Like I was saying previously, people in shock, they like the being able to listen really to any kind of marketing message wasn't possible. So I think I moved too quickly. I moved out of fear of my own kind of business. And it kind of hit me in the face, so to speak. And really, it was probably a matter of just riding that wave and being like, okay, let's just come out the other side and see where everyone's at. Yeah, so
that's a pretty, I imagine that would be a pretty, regardless of what business people are in, I think that would have been a very common feeling, was that I need to look after my business and make sure that I'm still able to be here to help people. How will I do that? How will I make it easy for them? How will I make it accessible? I know I'll make everything cheaper and then they'll just turn up. And so I think that would be a very common feeling amongst a lot of business owners. And I think, maybe that was one of those times where, you could hold on or, as you said before, hang in there. It'll happen. They'll turn up. But I think we all need that advice as business owners at the moment. I think we just need to hang in there because it'll happen. Personally, I've been saying to friends of mine that are in business for the last week or so that I can already see and feel changes in how businesses are moving. So, maybe 3 weeks ago, business owners were saying, yeah, let's just put things on hold. Let's just, stop for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
just as recently as, last week, I'm seeing more business owners come forward and say, yeah, we're thinking about doing, getting our name out there a little bit more, and we want more people to see us. And so I think that
Yeah.
confidence is sort of slowly returning as people realise they can pivot. There are things they can do differently. They can, like you're doing now, sessions via video instead of face to face. There are things that we perhaps as business owners never considered before, but out of
Yeah.
necessity or out of circumstance, we suddenly find ourselves being the most creative that we've ever been.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when I kind of made that move, I, on some level, thought I was listening to potential clients, that that's what they needed. But now, like actually listening to my current clients or clients that I've had one or two sessions with, um, it was them feeling uneasy about going from face to face to online. So to address that, I offered the first online sessions free of charge to give them a sense as to whether online therapy was going to work for them. And so it's kind of that difference of tuning in and listening to just even what my current clients are saying, and being able to meet that need, and doing the good work there.
And that's really, I think, like for our audience, I think you've made a really important distinction there of, I'm doing this because I'm worried. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'm doing this because this is what my customers are telling me. And
Yeah.
there's I can never remember the words exactly, but there's a great quote from Seth Godin who says that you don't make a product and then hope that people will come and buy it. You find out what people like and then you sell that to them.
Yeah.
So it's
Is that the purple cow?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, rather. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And that's exactly what you're talking about there, is that, that initial move of, I'll make my prices half, your fear versus listening to your customers then after that and them saying,
Yeah.
actually what we're worried about is just not being face to face and whether or not video will even work for us. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah. And I think, sorry, just wanted to say, also trying to figure out that I wasn't listening to my clients like I thought I was. I thought, yeah, so this is what's happening in the world and da da da. But yeah, like being able to step back now and reflect, it's like you said, yeah, no, it was because I was like, are we going to be okay?
Yeah.
And over here is what they're saying. So turn your ear there. Yeah.
And then what's the opposite? What's something like a bit of marketing or advertising that you've done where you kind of maybe did it reluctantly, or you didn't think it would be, very successful, it was just worth giving a go, but then it had some really positive effects for you?
For me right now, Instagram seems to have been a really good platform for me. And I wanted to start my Instagram just because I felt like the clients that I wanted to attract weren't on Facebook, and that they were more focused on Instagram. I love the visual aspect of it. So I knew it was going to be easy for me to keep the content flowing. I think that's really important because if you don't kind of feel like you're enjoying creating the content for whatever platform it is, it can feel like a lot of work, and always it's going to feel like some work. But because I love the visual aspect of Instagram, I love illustration myself, I love graphic design, it's easy for me to produce content for Instagram. And I've just found that I've developed some connections from that platform that I wouldn't have thought would happen. So yeah, like I've had celebrants kind of reach out for pre-marriage counselling for some of their couples because they've found me through Instagram. I've had like parenting magazines reach out wanting an article because they just found my page on Instagram. So I didn't kind of think that, I thought it would be more that clients might find me there, but I'm finding that it's kind of that business to business stuff, which will potentially lead to clients later on. But it's just like that building block stuff that Instagram's giving me at the moment, which is really, really lovely and organic, so to speak.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Mm.
And would you say that that's probably the most valuable free tool that you've used for your business?
Free tool probably, yeah. Because I don't think I don't really use a lot. I use LinkedIn more to connect with other therapists and supervisors, and Instagram, and then I have my website. So yeah, that's probably the best one so far.
Okay. And what's the next big thing for you?
Well, it's funny because I was sitting down the other day trying to write out some goals, and that's when decided I need this business coach. So probably I'll speak from maybe like a training level and then a business level. Training level is that you can become certified as an emotionally focused therapist. So that's something that is the next thing, the next goal there for me. And that could take a year. I don't know how long that's going to take. So it's kind of a ongoing one.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of business, I'd really like to be able to offer more articles to magazines and kind of spreading the word about relationships and how to keep them strong via publications. So that's kind of what I'm working towards at the moment.
So on that point, one tip that I can give you that some of my colleagues often get tired of me talking about it, but I think it's such a fantastic tool for business owners, is sourcebottle.com.
Yeah, that's on my list.
Yeah. So I think every day, for those of our audience that aren't aware, Source Bottle, not sources in tomato sauce, but sources in the media source, sourcebottle.com is a great place as a business owner to go and register as a source for other people that are looking for people to interview or people to provide insights or tips or advice about a particular industry or topic. And you can also get featured on podcasts and all kinds of big time media outlets as well. So a personal example, last year I was featured in a article, or actually it was more like a white paper, I guess, about Google advertising and some of the free things or some of the tips that you can do to improve your Google advertising. I gave 3 of my favorite tips in there, and that went out to 350,000 people. So little things like that are really great for your business. And one of the things that business owners often overlook with their website are what's called backlinks. So other websites referring back to your website. That's Google loves that, and they'll move your website up the rankings the more that happens. And so SourceBottle is it's great to hear that it's on your list. And they'll send you a couple of emails every day with opportunities for you to review and see if you can add value.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
And what's the best advice that you can give our listening audience or our watching audience?
Probably I've got a few things coming, so I'm trying to think of the best one. To be that piece about being patient and compassionate with yourself. Having your own business is extremely courageous. It's not easy, and understanding that first and acknowledging that you're doing something that isn't easy is a good first step, and kind of patting yourself on the back even just for taking that on, and acknowledging that is going to kind of just get you in the right frame of mind, I think.
Great advice. And this is the question that, one question that I've added today that I'm really excited about, and we'll see how it goes.
Sure.
So what is one question that you would like me to ask the guest on my very next show?
I'd really love to know how they pivoted or handled changing or adapting their business for coronavirus, because I think every business is doing it differently, and it's really inspiring to hear how businesses are changing or adapting.
Absolutely. That's a great question. It'll be great to ask that one. So if you would like to learn more about what Natalie does, head to her website, which is natalieclaireking.com. And for those watching the show or listening to it, a link to Natalie's website will be in the description as well. I always like to close the show with a quote that I hope is relevant to our guest. So today's quote comes from Joyce Meyer, who said, "We can improve our relationships with others by leaps and bounds if we become encouragers instead of critics."
Perfect.
Thank you very much for being on the show today, Natalie.
Thank you so much, Brett.
You've been listening or watching the Paperclip podcast presented by BSDA. We have one clear goal: help you to become bigger. If you would like to learn more about growing your business, head to bsda.com.au. Until next time, keep growing.